I'm Brittany Jean Elizabeth Spears, and I'm here to talk to you about the true meaning of Thanksgiving. I'm just kidding, it's still me, Sam Lake, and welcome to another episode of I've Had a Rosé, Let's Talk About Feelings, recorded live from Plague Island, formerly known as the United Kingdom. Might be a bit too soon to call it Plague Island just because we have a new strain of the coronavirus that's special to us. I don't want to make it a thing, but we're not like other countries. Like, we're quirky, we're different, we don't fit in. But it's been a very tense week for us. I hope anyone who's listening to this from Plague Island, you're doing okay. You're able to, at least contact your family. I don't know if I'll keep calling it Plague Island. But it's very a tomato thing for me now. Or in the words of Nadine Coyle, you say potato, I say potato. But so it's been difficult, and I hope you're doing whatever you can to, gain some respite from the stress that's going on. David and I watched all of the Princess Switch films on Netflix, starring the Eddie Murphy of our generation, Vanessa Hudgens. It's a fine Christmas romp. I understand. I think we watched it because Princess Switch 2, I forget what it's called. Princess Switch 2, Smack My Switch Up, was recorded partly in Edinburgh, and we watched it to recognise all of the places. And David likes to do this thing. He does this with the Eurovision film as well, which was also recorded in Edinburgh, and points out the parts that are in Edinburgh and are actually in Glasgow as well. I'm just getting aroused thinking about him saying it, actually. Anyway, so we've done that. That was very enjoyable. Of course, I can't go a minute without coming up with a new drag name. And this week's one, I've come up with a drag name which is Rita Bell, which doesn't sound like a pun. Until I tell you that she suffers from irritable bowel syndrome. I talk about bowel movements a lot on this podcast, and that was not the intention when I created it all those weeks ago. Anyway, here we are. Speaking of a healthy bowel, let's talk about Sam Swallows the Seasons. That's a transition. It's time for my seasonal beverage review. We've only got 2 of these left, by the way. So I don't know if I've told you this, what the plan for the rest of this series is, but you're now listening to episode 9, which is the penultimate episode. Next week will be the last one, except it's not the last one. There'll be 2 more episodes after the last one. So I'm using penultimate, the rarely used definition of the word penultimate, to mean third last. So there's 4 more episodes to go, including this one. I'm explaining this terribly. Anyway, this is episode 9. There will be 12 episodes in total. Next week, I will speak to my final guest of this series, and they're a good one. Then we're going to have a little highlights show, but not like one of those shit shows where you tune into your favorite sitcom and it's a clip show. It's not that. It's all new content recorded with all of the guests of the series. It's really lovely. And then the final episode is going to be something quite special. We're going to have some returning characters. We're going to flip the script, as M. Night Shyamalan said to me. It said to me, personally. I was Avatar, the airbender. Well, I've been called a bender. Anyway, we've gone off track. So that's where we are, just so you know what to expect. Let's get back into the seasonal beverage review. And this week, I went back to an old faithful. I went back to Costa. And this time I tried the After Eights hot chocolate. Now, what a lot of people are telling me is that they love a hot chocolate, but they don't know if they can trust a rogue flavour in there. And to that I say, did you not swallow the Terry's Chocolate Orange hot chocolate? A game changer in drinkable hot chocolate, as I called it. And I have to say, the After Eights is really just on the same level. Was it as good as the orange hot chocolate? I'm going to say no, because you know me, I'm a bit fruity. Make of that sentence what you will. But this was still really enjoyable. What they've done a really good job of is making the hot chocolate taste like the chocolate that it is based off of. And just like the Terry's hot chocolate, you also get a little After Eight, which is lovely. Felt very glamorous eating that in Waverley Shopping Centre. As I was eating it, a man came up to me and said in a very thick Glaswegian accent, "Gisa bloy." And I didn't. But if I had, I could have had the After Eight afterwards to get rid of the taste. I don't mean to impart such wisdom before an episode, but hey, here we are. Now let's get into this week's episode, provide a bit of respite for you living in a tier 4 plague island culture. And this week my guest is the fabulous Ania Magliano, and she really brings an energy to this show that I was not expecting. I'm going to put it down to the fact she enjoyed a mulled wine as we recorded this, but we talk about so many cool things. She's someone who expresses emotions through the medium of sport, which we've talked about on the show. We immediately come in hot with a horoscope chat, but also she just brings a whole bunch of rage, just sweet feminine rage, just like that band, Sweet Female Attitude or whatever it was, that sang the Flowers song that was covered by Sugar Babes. It's like that, except it's boxing. Oh, I really enjoyed recording this episode. You're going to have a fab time listening to it. I'll check in with you in the middle of the show with a word from our sponsors, and I'll check in with you at the end just to see how you felt about everything. There'll be a small form to fill out, okay? Without further ado, let's chat to Ania Magliano. And joining me this week is the multifaceted, multi-talented. I'm not really sure what the word faceted means, so I use the word talented because I think faceted means taps. It's Ania Magliano. Hello.
Hello. I think faceted does mean taps, but I also want it to apply to me.
Do you have taps?
I don't have taps, but wait, do we mean on the bod, on the body?
Yeah, taps on the bod. It's like a new, I think it's like a Gen Z thing where you just have like, instead of like a nipple piercing, you just have like an entire bathroom fitting put through both nips.
I adore that. I feel like the bathroom is very much my safe space.
Oh, very. And why not shove a space right through the areola?
I mean, neither of us clarified that the tap would be on the nips, did we? But we both knew it.
I think, yeah, spiritually, where else are you going to put it? I mean,
where else are you going to put it?
I mean, there's a couple places. We'll see where the evening goes, baby.
From what I understood, this is not what the podcast is about. Am I right?
Yeah, it's a piercing podcast. Like it's like tattoo fixers, except like you'll come in and you've got like an exhaust pipe through your shin. I'll be like, oh, what a fun! That's very you. Very interesting.
Very
Ania, what have you been up to? What have your movements been? Are you hydrated?
Okay, 3 huge questions for me to answer.
Oh yeah, I hit the big questions first.
3. What am I up to? Not much at the moment because I'm home at my parents', my mum and my stepdad, and there I also have 2 dogs and a cat. But because I don't know how long I'm going to be here, I had to bring home my own cat from London. So it's literally like being Ace Ventura pet detective. It's chaos.
Oh dear. And you put pictures of I see your cat on your Insta story all of the time, and I'm very jealous because we don't have a pet. It seems like a lovely little cat.
Oh my God, he's the most incredible, what's the word? Upholder of my mental health. It rests all upon his tiny furry back. Last night, well, actually it was this morning, I woke up and he's figured out how to get under the duvet and he like burrowed into my arm. Wait, not into my, but curled up within my arm under the duvet like a husband or wife.
Oh, wow. I've been with my partner for 4 years and even he doesn't do that.
Yeah, other than that, what was your next question? What are my movements? My movements are very still.
Oh, great.
So as not to fuck with the recording, I'm so anxious about internet going down and all that sort of stuff. Like, I just feel like it's always, every time I have to do, there's so little that I'm doing right now, and every time that I do, I feel like something goes horribly wrong. So I'll just stay completely still and barely breathe. And am I hydrated? Yes. I've got a mug even, of mulled wine.
Okay, there's water in that.
Yeah, there's water in that. And I've got a cup of water as well because I live a balanced and healthy lifestyle. But I haven't really drunken it, but it's there. Drunken or drank? I feel like you will know this answer.
Drank? Drunken is an adjective for like the state of being drunk.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. But then I have heard people say like, oh, I'm having some drank.
Yeah, I'm not sure to pull that off.
we're not here to judge anyone's turn of phrase. You be you.
Thank God. God, there's so much this podcast is not, and I love it for that.
I do spend a lot of time explaining to people what the podcast isn't, and then they just infer what it is from what's left. And I think so far it's been established that this is somewhere between a piercing review and Changing Rooms presenter Linda Barker fan podcast.
Perfect. What a place to do.
So first question right off the bat, what has Linda Barker threatened your family with?
I have to say I have no idea who you're talking about, but I can tell it's a reference.
God. And Ania, can I ask, is this a rude question? How old are you?
I'm 22.
Literally fuck off. Oh God, I just interviewed Jack Shepherd last week.
Yeah.
On the day after his 21st birthday. I don't know. Clearly, this show just has significant younger generation appeal, and I should lean into that.
And so do you. But also, I'm angry, even though that is maybe one and a bit years younger than me. I'm fuming that he's younger than me.
See, you're still in the way of processing ages. If you're in year 7,
yeah,
you're really angry at people in year 6 and year 8. It goes both ways.
Yeah, I'm in year 7 basically, and I'm happy
essentially.
I'm happy to be here.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I don't get that reference. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. That reference will just be for Daddy. So I asked the same of the serious questions. Now we're going to get very serious very quick, just like Nicolas Cage. I asked the same first question to all of my guests, and that question is very simple. Do you consider yourself to be an emotional person?
Do you know what? I was thinking about this, and I was like, well, the answer really is that I'm an Aquarius.
Oh, stop.
Actually, I forgot. I was like, when you mentioned what the questions were going to be, I was like, oh, I should actually check my co-star and see what it tells me, because I don't know. I feel like I go very quickly between the two.
Okay, now co-star is an app,
yes,
and I have seen people post funny notifications that it gives them. I did not realize until quite recently that it is an app for horoscope-related things and not a menstrual tracker.
Yeah. I mean, the moon is involved in both of those things, so they're not that apart. But it is like one of those. It's an app where you have to put in not only the date of birth but your time and your location, so it finds out your chart. Which I don't rely on it, but when I need a little bit of guidance, I will open it up and take what it says as gospel.
That's so interesting. And do you find it consistently leads you down the right path, or has it ever led you astray?
Oh, do you know what? I think it is one of those things. I also once had my tarot read in conjunction with this. Not, I didn't pay for it. I'm not that far down the hole, but there was a girl who I knew who was doing it, and she did it for me. And at the time, I met her I'm going to say this in a sentence, and you're just going to have to accept what I'm about to say.
Ooh, okay.
In Thailand doing a Thai boxing camp. This girl read my tarot. And it was amazing, but also even she was like, oh, it doesn't predict the future. You'll just take what you want out of it. Which is, I guess, how I view horoscopes, is that like
a fridge.
Yeah, exactly. In many ways, horoscopes are the fridge of the mind.
Oh, wow. Okay.
According to my app, what it says about my emotions is that my moon is in Scorpio, meaning my emotional self is intense, passionate, and a bit dramatic. You have trouble opening up and letting other people in, and try to keep your intense, darker emotions private.
Oh,
which I think is bang on.
Do you think that's bang on? Have you ever tried taking the reading it gives you and then give it to another person and say it's about them and see if they go, oh yeah, that's me?
Oh no, I haven't, because I put too much faith in it to do something like that.
Well, that's interesting then. And so, how often do you consult co-star for guidance?
Oh, I actually, because I have this, because I'm trying to be a mentally healthy person, against
Hmm.
my better judgment, I have like notifications and stuff usually turned off or on like a limit on my phone. Which,
Same, yes.
I mean, do you have time limit?
No, I literally just turn off any and all notifications
Yeah,
from any social media app. And then I only end up using those apps when I want to use them. So a
yeah,
lot, especially as comedians, like Twitter, for example, we're expected to like just like really own Twitter.
yeah.
And most of the time I just don't want to, I just can't face it. So I will only go to Twitter if I like have something to put on there. Otherwise, I just won't look at it, and that's done wonders for me.
Yeah, that's definitely the better way to be. Because I find myself when I'm not doing that, I'll just be like, I have to tweet something, otherwise people are going to think I'm not funny, and then I'll tweet something that isn't funny, and everyone
Yep.
it's a self-fulfilling
Hmm.
prophecy, and then my career will hurtle downwards.
So your co-star app. So this is very interesting because we briefly touched in a previous episode on horoscopes. And what I found interesting, what you just said, was how with the tarot reading, you kind of just take what you want from it. And then
Mm.
the influence is. So the next question would be, what do you use to access your emotions? But it sounds like, am I right in thinking that are you a spiritual person?
Oh, like not really. I think. Do you know what? I think that was a bit of a like. I feel like that's a really for me astrology stuff is like a very self-centered, like hedonistic way into it because it also
Oh,
I'm
okay.
like intelligent and like more unique than other people, which is just obviously so satisfying to hear. But like to actually access those emotions in a way that like I guess is more challenging is probably
Yes.
therapy weekly.
Okay. All right. Now, funnily enough, we've not actually spoken about therapy on this show yet.
Oh, that's
So
mad.
I know, just get you being a pioneer. Yeah, the first known comedian to ever go to therapy. So that's interesting. Can I ask how you ended up starting your therapy journey?
Yeah, of course. I mean, do you know what? Like, I've been to a bunch of different therapists. I've done so many different types, and it just started with the classic, like, I think like teenage kind of depression slash moods slash anxiety, like loads
Mm,
and loads of different things bubbling over, and it was very much like a I actually, okay, this is kind of a horror story and it isn't what all therapy is like, but I had a really bad therapist straight away because my school were very like, fuck, we don't know how to deal with this. Send her away to, not away, but like send her to someone.
hmm.
And I went to this guy who was like in this weird, I remember the room being like, it had a lot of like light coloured wood. It was very like Scandinavian vibes, but it was in
Oh, wow.
somewhere in Buckinghamshire.
Mm,
And I just like didn't want to be there, didn't get on with him at all. So eventually decided to stop after like a couple of sessions. And then when I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, he like kind of went a bit mad. And when my mum came with me to be like, she doesn't want to do this anymore, he was like, yeah, but surely you need therapy because how fucked up she is. He
oh,
was trying to do like he was trying to like sell himself onto her, and we were just like, what, and just left. And obviously I didn't
is
do therapy for ages after that.
well, I could imagine. Yeah, I mean, from what I do know about therapy, doing the research and making sure you find a therapist who can understand you and your experiences and maybe even comes from a similar background to you is quite
Mm.
important. So, was that anything when you were? I suppose, did you find this therapist or was this therapist found for you? Because I'd imagine if you chose your own therapist, you probably wouldn't choose a random Swedish man surrounded by wood.
I think it was chosen for me. Also, I was quite young at that point. I would say I was like 15.
Okay.
Whereas the therapist I'm with now, and I'll say like I've seen a bunch of different therapists before, and I always, whenever I'm recommending therapy to people in my life, which is a lot, especially to people like family members who I'm like, you need to do it so that I can stop dealing with your problems like a therapist. It is like dating, where it's like you have, like, it's weird because it's this in between kind of like a doctor, but also like someone you have quote unquote a relationship with.
Right.
Like, obviously there are some fundamental similarities between therapists, but so much is different that it's like there's no shame. Do you know what? The therapist that I'm with now, I've seen for over a year, and that's the longest I've ever had therapy for. But right before her, I went to like a consultation with one other therapist, and that was the first time I'd ever turned a therapist down, because I was like, because also, so this one is through health insurance, so I could be a bit more picky because I was like, I'm not paying for it, basically. But I'd been to one before and like told her, it was all, you know, like told her the kind of bullet point summary of everything that had got me to this point, and she just looked really worried, and I was like, that's a good sign.
That's like when a doctor or a mechanic just looks at you and just goes and just sighs really heavily. You're like, what's wrong?
Yeah, I was like, this, do you know what, this doesn't fill me with hope. The one I'm with now, I'm like, she's absolute legend. Like, also I thought what was interesting, like, it's interesting to be able to talk about this with someone who isn't her, because I feel like the way I deal with my emotions has changed so much over the past year because of therapy.
Imagine if I like hit a button and it turned out this was a one of those like Scream voice encoders, and I actually was her.
I'd be like, fair enough. I thought you were on holiday till January 8th. Fair enough.
And I'd be like, no, I came back, and also I've made some pretty big life choices I should tell you about. But well, that's good. I'm glad you have a good relationship with your therapist. And do you think so? When I've considered therapy, I've always thought, well, I would want someone who understands what a queer experience is like growing up gay in a rural area, or someone who can relate to that. It was that true for you as well? Were you actively seeking a woman or someone who has the same experiences as you?
That's interesting. Do you know what? I like didn't talk much about, even though I had come out in some circles in my life, I didn't talk to her much about it until about February, which is when it became a big part of my life because like of the relationship I was in ending.
Right.
So it wasn't like something I was looking for, but it was one of those things where, because of getting it through health insurance, I had like a list of the ones they'd approved, and so I like had like a million tabs open of all of them. And I was
okay.
on her website, and she said that like sometimes she'll do like therapy for like as going for a walk in the park, like so she'll literally go for a walk in the park with her client and just do therapy like on the move. And I was like, that's kind of cool.
I love that.
But I've never done it because it's all been on Zoom pretty much.
Oh, right. Okay.
But yeah, I think it's great. And I think like the other people who I've recommended therapy to in my life have been very conscious of like being like, oh, I want someone who can maybe recognize queer experience, or some of my black friends will say I want a black therapist, and like, yeah, it makes so much sense because like obviously you want someone who you know isn't just who can be empathetic as well as understanding,
right?
But I think for me, the methods she uses for like the big events in my life really works. I'm not that bothered about the other stuff at the moment. I mean, I actually know nothing about her personal life, and I'm always like, what's going on with your life? But it's such an instinct in conversation to be like, and what about you? But when she's like, what's your relationship with your dad like, I can't really be like, yeah, so what about yours?
Yeah.
You can't ask that.
But I mean, I suppose you could, but she'd probably just turn it back onto you and just be like, this isn't about me.
Why are you deflecting?
Yeah.
Good.
Wow, she's really earning that. She's really earning that health insurance money. Well, Before we quickly go to a break, the last question is about which emotion comes to you easiest.
Yeah.
Now, I guess in your situation, that could be like whichever emotion you experience through therapy or just outside of therapy as well. Is there an emotion that comes to you quite quickly, quite easily?
Yes, and I think, I don't know, I feel like this might surprise you.
Okay.
And it's rage.
I adore a bit of rage. I think a good bit, I've said it before, a good bit of anger in a controlled environment where you know like what the limits are and you can
Mm.
just like let rip. I think is very healthy. And I think that's why there are things like rage rooms where they just fill it with like old like bits of ceramics and old TVs and stuff, and they just give you a hammer, just like let it all
Oh my
out.
God, I've never heard of that.
Oh, Olga, former guest of the show,
Mm.
went to one and said it was fantastic. But I mean, you can any room can be a rage room if you're really angry enough. No, we celebrate a healthy exhibition of rage.
Yeah.
But it depends. I guess it depends. How does your rage manifest?
Well, interesting that you mentioned the rage room because I didn't know that existed, but that's definitely what I use boxing for. I do quite a lot of boxing, which if you had
Mm.
to attribute a sport to rage, you'd definitely go boxing, like textbook.
Right.
I didn't realize, this is another thing that I didn't really realize until therapy, but like a lot of events in my life that would cause a multitude of different emotions, I'd only let myself feel the rage.
Mm.
So like bad experiences with men, kind of end of list. I'd be like very full of anger, and it would often come up like during therapy. My therapist is very good
Mm.
at being like, "How are you feeling right now?" And I'll be like, "I feel like I'm buzzing with anger."
Oh.
And once she made me just stand and like push against a wall, which, to be fair to her, a lot of things she says do work. That was not one of them. I was like, "Why against this wall?"
Like do a push up on the wall.
No, literally, she was like, just push, because she was like, I feel like you have a lot of. She's not very spiritual. This sounds like quite a spiritual thing, but she was like, I feel like you have a lot of like energy in your body that you need to get out. So like, push against the wall and
Mm,
see if you can get some of it out. Just push as hard as you can.
I
Um,
see.
and also, this was on Zoom, so it was really awkward because I just had to like leave. I was like, "Do you need me to bring the laptop?" And she was like, "No, no." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I came back like, "I don't know. I just pushed the wall." Um, but so, um, other than that, like I feel like
Mm,
it's very like at the top of it's what bubbles over in my emotions is always the anger, and so like
yeah.
through after like working through some of my anger, I'll in therapy like I'll usually get to a place of like sadness, but that's not necessarily like what's actually there. It's just because I can access the rage more easily because like I think rage is like a really logical emotion to have,
Hmm. Yeah.
especially if you've been like objectively wronged. You're like, this is so ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I find interesting is like exerting the rage through a sport. And because you said boxing, do you think that if you were to try and exert some rage in that way, that it has to be a sport that has some violence to it? Like, would you get the same feeling if you did, I don't know, um, fly fishing or or volleyball or those are the only other
There's
sports
really
apart
two
from
sports,
boxing.
you know? um, I think it, for me personally, it does, and it also there's something about the power of it because
Ah.
rage, for me, rage is like often tied up in powerlessness. I'll just forward my therapist this podcast because I feel like it's gonna save her some time.
Yeah. I just like I choose to show my strength in other ways, like strength of character. Anya, I'm having a lovely time chatting to you. Do you mind if we just take a quick break to hear from one of our lovely sponsors?
Absolutely, go off, Queen.
Oh, sis, I'm gonna. We'll be right back with Anya. as always, I'd like to take a moment to thank this week's sponsors who help keep this show a-running. And now we were reached out to the makers of Cyberpunk 2077, but to be honest, I just didn't want the brand of this show tainted with that of the current reputation of Cyberpunk 2077. I've got my standards, guys. Anyway, moving on to this week's sponsor, it's the lovely people at Wet Pillows. Have you ever walked into your bedroom, touched the pillow and wondered, I think it's wet, but it might just be cold? Well, why not buy yourself some pre-moistened pillows, guaranteed to stay wet forever? You can try putting them in the tumble dryer, but they will always, always, always be a little bit damp. So use the offer code ROSE to get yourself 20% off your first 2 damp pillows. You're going to want to stock up because they do get mold very quickly. And in a I've had a rose first, we've actually got 2 whole sponsors this week. Whilst you're enjoying your wet pillows, why not pick yourself up something to treat your feminine needs, but also to satisfy your craving for a beloved children's cartoon? So pick yourself up a pack of My Little Tamponies. That's My Little Tamponies, made by my stepdad, Tony's. Oh no. But use the offer code. Use the offer code ROSE. Oh, to get yourself a pillow and a tampon. I'm not okay. Oh no. Go back to the episode. And we're back, and we've just been having a lovely time chatting to the wonderful Ania Magliano about therapy and violence, not at the same time. Ania, how are you ticking along? Are you enjoying yourself?
I'm having a great time. It's so lovely of you to come up with such a lovely, indulgent topic for the guest. How stunning.
I was worried that, comedians would not be as forthcoming with their emotions in such an honest way. And then I realized that so many of us are thinking about what to put at the 40-minute mark of our Edinburgh shows to really bum everyone out.
So right.
Exactly. So actually, it's been very lucrative. Well, I'm glad you're having a nice time. And it's time to march on to the next question.
Okay.
And this is where I'd like to ask you if there's ever been a time that you believe, given the context of the situation you were in, you got a bit too emotional.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Everyone always has, it's not that, everyone has a story for this question. It's that they have multiple stories and then have to quickly think, oh, okay, which one of the millions?
Exactly.
What is your story?
So, my story, the reason this one came to my head is because it is so recent.
Fresh.
I'm, fairly sure that the people involved wouldn't end up listening to this, but...
Okay.
We'll take the risk.
I mean, from that logic, you must be talking about my biological father.
Yes, your biological father and I. No, it's actually about... Well, actually, do you know what? I think also, even if they did listen, I think this is okay to talk about because we've had a conversation about it since then. And
okay.
I just, flipped out at my flatmate the other day.
Bringing the rage again.
Yeah, except, do you know what? It was a tale as old as time in terms of my life, in that it was a bunch of stuff that I'd been so, obsessed with, or maybe not obsessed with, because that makes it sound conscious. I'd been so subconsciously, trying to be a people pleaser that I haven't allowed any space. I'm using such therapy language right now. But I hadn't allowed any space for the stuff that I was finding annoying, which meant that one criticism that was in the form of a joke made me just completely switch and be like, what? Do you have a problem with me?
Okay, can I ask what the what the comment was?
Yeah, it's the only reason I didn't say it straight away was because it's just, I feel like it's quite boring. But basically, I did a COVID test before I came home because I didn't want to
Right.
bring COVID home.
COVID home for Christmas.
COVID Home for Christmas. Still, that film would still be better than The Happiest.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so I did this test and then was like self-isolating, obviously, after doing it, but went for one walk, which turns out you're not allowed to do.
Oh, right.
But I didn't have any symptoms, so I was kind of like, I didn't think it would be that big a deal. But then the flatmate and her boyfriend made like a joke about it, but like one of those jokes where you're like, oh, this clearly is more than a joke. And it had just been because neither of us had a conversation about like the things that we were doing to piss each other off up until that point.
Oh, right.
So the boyfriend making a comment about me going for a walk was then like me being like, okay, so do you have a problem with me going for a walk? Because I have a problem with you being in this house for the whole week. And you know, like, this insane escalation of things really suddenly that like I was like, holy shit, where did that come from? And obviously it wasn't until, say, it was me therapy the next day
yeah.
that I was like, oh, of course it's because I feel like my personal space is being available, blah, blah, blah. And then wrote it all out on a little post-it note and was like, guys, can we all talk as a flat? I need to explain to you why I flipped out yesterday.
Right. Was that a productive conversation?
Yeah. And like, also it was very impressive for me to do that because so often when I have a rage or like an anger thing, I'll just be like, well, I acted completely perfectly.
Absolutely. I think we all do that, of being like, there's definitely like a period after an altercation where you're like, I was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I did everything reasonably and rationally.
And even more than that, you're like, everything I said was amazing. Why am I not the president of this country?
Why have I not been given the Pulitzer Prize? Yeah. I mean, I think the whole time I'm picturing you whilst you're having this out with your flatmate and their boyfriend, you're just pushing against a wall really hard at the same time.
Oh my God. No, but I do think that this was also after the gyms closed, so I hadn't been boxing, and that was definitely also in play.
Oh, I can't, because we're about to go into tier 4 on Boxing Day, when arguably you would need the gym the most.
Yeah.
And obviously you in London it's already tier 4. I'm really worried about the person I'll be without the gym.
Yeah,
and I'm not even
for your mental health. Do you think? Not to go in straight at the deep end, but
well, I mean, oh god, I'm bringing it up again, just like I did on the gig last week. But my muscle building journey means a lot to me.
Come on, let's hear about it.
Let's hear about it. I mean, okay, I prefix it every time by saying I'm not on a muscle building journey to look different in any way. I literally just want to get stronger and feel like I could do more with my body. And I purposely set myself a very lofty goal of being able to lift a car over my head. So I will continue to try and get my muscles to where they need to be able to do that. But even if I became super hench after years of training, I probably still wouldn't be able to do that. So then the goal always seems within reach, but never is actually. And so I just keep doing it. Okay. So I just enjoy the feeling and the sensation of getting stronger. And also because the weight section in a gym is an inherently very toxic-y, masculinely place. Being able to, yeah, absolute. Being able to go in there with a sense of agency and then just be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. You might be lifting more than me, or I might be lifting more than you, but that's not what's important to me. Yeah. I'm here on my own muscle building journey, and that's good enough. And so that's done wonders for the old mental health there. But I don't necessarily know if it's the exercise, it's all of the things that I associate with like a physical activity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also that thing you were saying of like how people say, oh, just go for a run, it will give you time to think about everything. Sometimes having a different form of exercise where you're actually focusing on something is more like useful, because you've done you're thinking all the other times in your day, like you just need some time to, I don't know, I have a specific like running playlist, which is such a ridiculous selection of music. But like when I say running, I obviously mean general exercise, but for me,
Yeah.
because it's built off someone else's running playlist, I'm like, yes, it's my running playlist.
You've made it your own.
Exactly. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, I just want to like beam this music into my head and feel strong and not think about my problems at all.
Yes. Yeah, music does create that sensation, and I do associate that with like the pump you get after after lifting a weight. Not a sexual thing, like the pump in your
The
muscles.
erection you get after lifting a weight.
The erection. That's why like I can walk in there with agency, because I'm just so hard. Do you know what? Well, I think that was a lovely time of getting too emotional. We've gone off on a tangent and I loved every second of it. The next question is slightly a gear change,
Okay.
where I actually want you to like delve into some of that classic Magliano rage. This is the part of the show called Stick a Cork in It, where I give you unbridled right to stick a cork in someone who has wronged you in some way, be they real or fictional. Nobody has done fictional thus far.
Yeah, that would be an insane thing to do.
Yeah, SpongeBob SquarePants got a fucking mouth on him. You can silence or tell someone off, whoever it may be, for whatever reason, and no reason is too small or too big. Who, Anya, are you going to be sticking a cork into?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say flatmate and the boyfriend because our conversation was productive.
It would sound like you'd come onto this podcast with a slight agenda.
No, and I actually feel like it was productive enough that my aunt. Do you know what it's hard to pick. I think I don't know if any of your other guests have sort of said like similar things, but I think it's hard when you're not seeing that many people to like feel extreme anger at anyone other than like the government.
Oh.
But I watched Notting Hill last night.
Okay. Speaking of the government.
Speaking of the government, and I was just like, I'm kind of angry and just find this whole film annoying to me.
Okay, so you want to stick a cork into? We'll say it's a DVD, and you're just shoving a dry cork right in the hole in the DVD.
Or maybe even into Hugh Grant.
Okay, well, let's talk about your issues with the film, and then maybe we'll identify the right orifice to put the cork in.
Okay, classic therapy move right there. Joanne.
What bothered you about, let's say, Notting Hill in general, the film?
The place. No, the film.
The place, yeah.
So it's famously never easy to pick a single thing to watch when you're watching with yourself, let alone with other people in the house. So it took us ages to decide to rewatch this old ass film. And when I was younger and definitely straighter, I would watch it and be like, oh my God, I love Hugh Grant.
Right.
Never fully got Julia Roberts' character in it. Was always like,
okay,
at what point are we meant to like understand why he likes her, other than the fact that he's famous? So I was just, and then watching it last night, I was like, she's like annoying. Just
okay.
She's okay. What? Let's think about this. Why didn't I like her? Is it because
I'm just going to run and get some more corks because I feel like one won't do.
Do you know what? I was just like, I don't find you a likable character. Anna Scott, the biggest movie star in the world. Hugh Grant, you're just. Do you know what? This is the problem with watching something when you are also someone who wants to write successful films, TV, comedy. I was like, I wish all these lines were given to a woman. Or at least just not Hugh Grant. I was just like, I get it. Like, I get that you have hair that's long. Also, he reminds me of like a couple of guys that I dated at uni. So I think there's that going on as well. And I was just like, you're, first of all, like, you have no reason to like her other than that she's famous, which is also actually, like, just to be self-aware for a second, is the only quality that I fancy in other people is if they're more successful than me. That's my type. I don't identify as any sexuality other than the sexuality of the rich and famous.
Okay. Yeah.
So I guess I do relate to him on that level, but I was like, she literally has a boyfriend and you're like, oh yeah, let's just get back together. You're sort of trying to be adorable by offering her tea every other second. And I was just like, I'm bored of this. This is such a random bit of rage to have. I watched it all.
But sometimes you enjoy a rage watch, don't you? You like to. I'll sometimes watch things knowing, like a YouTube clip, and it will say like, "Oh, listen to people say why they don't think transgender people should have any rights," and I'll be like, "Well, I'll watch it so I can get angry. I know I won't agree with anything about it, but I want to feel the anger right now."
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I don't know, like, I definitely didn't expect to have that reaction. Do you know, when I started watching it, I was like, oh God, this is going to make me fancy Hugh Grant again.
Oh,
But I didn't, which I guess is my own personal growth after a year of therapy.
yeah, that's something to tell your therapist. I don't fancy Hugh Grant.
Only woman in the world. But do you know what? I don't think it's like, again, I'm not saying this is the thing that angers me most at the moment in the world, but it was recent.
Okay.
And I was just like, I don't know. I think I was, do you know what? If we're being honest, it's definitely because I was like, I want to be successful like Richard Curtis.
Fair. I mean, that's a fair reason to like shove. I don't know. I think about 4 corks there. I think I could find place for 4 corks in what you've said. But absolutely, jealousy and rage, they are the Tyr and Tamara of emotions. They just go together.
Absolutely. And boy, do I feel them so often.
Oh yes, don't we all? Don't we all? Fine. We're putting a fat old cork right in Notting Hill, the film, and Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant, and one in Richard Curtis as well.
Oh no, because I want him to cast me in something just near him.
Oh, if you were cast in a Richard Curtis film, what do you think your role would be?
Such a good question. Is he writing a queer one?
Potentially, sure. Although, in Love Actually, there was supposed to be a queer couple, and then they got cut out.
Really?
Yeah, old lesbians as well, the best kind of queer couple.
What? And did they film them, or did they just not make it to the final script? Do you know?
They filmed it, and like the scenes are on YouTube somewhere, but it's like one of the teachers at Emma Thompson's son's school.
Right.
There's like a subplot where like her son gets in trouble, and that's how you meet the lady. And then the lady goes home, and that's when you find out she's a les. We love a les, and her partner is terminally ill. And then later on in the film, her partner dies off camera, and Emma Thompson is making a speech to the school about how sad it is when a lesbian dies. I've paraphrased it slightly, but if you watch it back, that is like basically what happens.
How sad it is when a lesbian dies.
Yeah, I that sounds like, oh, if a tree falls down in the woods, a bit like if a lesbian.
Who's there to pass on the gene?
But
Oh well,
I mean, yeah, if he could make a queer one, I suppose. I think I know what my role would be.
Yeah,
I think I would be a traffic attendant who turns up at like the wrong time, like they're in a car chase to like beat someone to the airport, and I'm the traffic attendant who like humorously stops them from getting there, and then I might casually flirt with like the best friend of the man who's trying to get to the airport, and I'll be like,
so bad.
but like I'd be very. I think Richard Curtis would write me very, very camp.
Yeah.
So like I would say something like, "Oh, you can spin around my bollards anytime," and I put on that kind of that voice as well.
You would,
but only
you'd love to do it because it's Richard Curtis.
Yeah. And if I want what he did for Emma Thompson, because as we know, like Emma Thompson before Love Actually, she wasn't really doing much, and that was her big break.
That was her big break because she was sad because her husband.
Yeah.
Her.
And every year someone is always like, I'll never forgive him.
And I still feel it to this day. I haven't watched it, and yet just thinking about it, I need to go do some boxing because I'm angry. I don't know what my role would be. I hope it would be. I don't know. Do you know what my role would be? Yours was so bang on. I feel like this might be an untapped skill that you could harness to cast anyone in a Richard Curtis film.
I know what it is. I know what it is. Okay, so you work in an artisanal pottery shop. I'm giving you a role where you're predominantly in a dungaree.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah. And the heteronormative couple that the film is centered around, they come in there for like a pottery session. You're like one of those places where you can like paint the pots and be like, oh, we're very straight. And you have like a fun conversation with the lady of the couple before the man comes in, and like you think you're hitting it off, and then you see that she's gone off with the straight, and you're like, ugh. And then in another scene later in the film, you realize that one of the other people that you run the artisanal pottery shop with has actually fancied you for a really long time, and then you have like one of those like you have a passionate love scene in the style of Laura Linney and that European man.
Yeah.
Except you don't have to leave. You just enjoy the evening, and in the morning you have a bagel.
Oh my God. Do you know, like, as you were telling me that, I got so lost in that I'm now really back in reality. I was like, not only is this the role I was born to play, this is also the life I was born to live.
Oh my God. I hope that for you, and I want that for you.
Thank you so much. What a compliment. I'm going to fall asleep thinking about that.
You're ever so welcome. We're actually at the last question now, and this. Listen, you're going to be on your toes, which, thanks to the boxing, should come very easily for you. I am making so many sports puns, and I'm loving it. I'm feeling really toxic. This last section is called All the Feels, and this is a quick fire round. I'm going to give you some random nouns, topics, people, celebrities, themes, and you just tell me briefly how they make you feel. Are you ready?
Yes, I've closed my eyes.
Fantastic. Not required, but appreciated. Here we go. All the Feels starts now. A B&M home store.
Neutral. Oh, that's so bad. What a bad way to start. Okay, just give me another one. I'll be back.
Classic opinionated, Anya. Susanna Reid.
Who? Oh my God, this is going terribly.
Fair enough. She hosts Good Morning Britain. She's Piers Morgan's co-host.
Oh, yeah. Still neutral.
Okay. All right. I'm going to get a rise out of you. Customized face masks.
Oh, furious. You're not funny.
Really? You hate... Two separate things. Hate face masks. Also, Sam, you personally not funny. Love that. Tresemme hair care.
I feel like my emotion to that is like eye roll.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough if you need to use it against your will, but like we can all do better.
Okay. Do you have a preferred hair care brand?
Yes, but it would take a million years because I have specifically curly-haired products. But for any curly-haired listeners, Brio Geo, spelt Brigeo, is really good. Wow.
Okay. And if you use the offer code Rosa, you can get 20% off your next order. I'm just kidding. Nobody gives me money to do this. Emily in Paris, or as it should be pronounced, Emily in Paris.
I haven't watched it.
No. Oh, okay. All right. We'll say no more then. I watched the whole thing, but it was a bit of a rage watch, as we were discussing before.
Right, well, I'll say rage because I trust you.
Oh, thank you. And finally, dark chocolate.
Pure, unbridled arousal.
Oh, okay. A sexy response to the dark chocolate question. Most people respond in disgust.
Really?
Yeah, one person has said that dark chocolate makes them feel rich, which I can't get out of my head now. You're the first person to say that it's sensual and sexy.
It is sexy because I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, no, people aren't enjoying it that much, but you're like buying into the vibe of it, and that vibe is sex.
You are right. It is a sexy chocolate.
What I'm saying is I fuck chocolate.
Oh, well, fair enough. And ending on fucking a chocolate, that brings us to the end of the episode. Ania, you've been a joy and a delight, and just a trifle of wonderful layers to talk to. Have you had a nice time?
I've had an absolutely delightful time. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for letting me just zen out about my emotions in a place that isn't my therapy Zoom.
Oh, you're so welcome. Before I let you go, do you have anything that you'd like to shamelessly plug?
I mean, I'm sure I will start a podcast soon, but at the moment I just have my social media, which is Twitter is at Ania Mags, Instagram is at Ania Magliano, TikTok, hello.
You are a Well, I don't know if you're a TikToker, but you have a following.
I do a couple, and if they do well, then I do more, and then when those don't do well, I get furious.
Oh, okay, yes.
But yeah, follow me on there. It's at Ania Magliano if you're on there. But
if you're on there, I mean, it's pretty lit. Well, lovely. I hope everyone does go and give you a follow and all of those things. Ania, I will let you go. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, you're so welcome. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Wow. What a chat, what an episode, what a guest, what a lady. Ania is a fantastic guest. She's very funny, very talented. Do follow her on all of her social medias as she requested there. A fascinating chat. I just love talking about rage. I don't know if that's a very masculine thing of me, but I love talking about rage. Let's all just slap each other. Why not? Why not? Oh God, imagine if somebody got arrested by the police for slapping someone in the street and they said, I did it because of the Rose podcast. Honestly, amazing publicity. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, why not leave a review, a rating, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. And you can follow me on social medias. I am at Mr. Sam Lake, spelt MrSamlake. Mr. Sam Lake, not Mrs. Amlarkey, as some people think that it is pronounced. I will be back next week with my final guest of the series, but not the final episode. And also, keep your peepers and your ticklers peeled. Peel those ticklers. Because I'll have a special announcement to make in the not too distant future. What could it be? What could it be? He's already got a PS5, so it can't be that. You'll have to stay tuned to find out, but I'm making an extra special announcement in next week's episode. The mystery, the intrigue. Anyway, enjoy yourself. I hope you have a lovely Christmas. Goodbye and take care.